Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take your sources, all those notes and thoughts you send us, and really, well, dive deep. Today we're jumping straight into the 90s, a decade you could argue really captured by two huge sitcoms. They defined so much and kicked off this rivalry people still talk about. You sent us a ton of stuff on this articles, critical takes, even just personal feelings, and we're ready to sort through it all. We were talking, of course, about Seinfeld and Friends.
The big two from that era, for sure.
Absolutely. And for years, the question's been hanging there, which one's better? But, our mission today, it isn't just about picking sides.
No, it's deeper than that.
Exactly. It's about digging into these two giants, trying to understand their, core philosophies. It's this really fascinating clash, isn't it? Cynicism versus optimism.
Intellectual wit versus that real emotional warmth.
Yeah. A show about nothing versus, really a show about everything, in a way.
That sums it up pretty well.
So we're going to explore the characters, those iconic characters. They're totally different styles of humor and, the legacies they left behind. Why this isn't just about taste, but maybe worldviews.
It really might be.
So settle in. Grab your drink of choice. Maybe it's a Central Perk coffee. Maybe just a bowl of cereal like Jerry might have. Let's get into it. Okay, so to really get the heart of this whole Seinfeld versus Friends thing, we've got to start with their foundations, right? Their sort of philosophical roots.
Definitely. They came from such different places about what a sitcom could even do.
Right. So Seinfeld kicks off in '89, famously pitched, or so the story goes, as how a comedian gets his material.
Yeah, that was the initial hook.
But it pretty quickly became known as the show about nothing. It zeroed in on these tiny, everyday details that other shows just ignored.
Things like waiting for a table at a Chinese restaurant.
Exactly. Or losing your car in a parking garage. Or, the whole close talker thing. Finding humor in just the mundane.
But underneath that, the really radical part, driven by Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David, was that mantra. No hugging, no learning.
That was huge, wasn't it?
Oh, it's hard to overstate how much of a break that was from traditional TV. Sitcoms before that, they almost always wrapped up with someone learning a lesson, A warm, fuzzy moment.
Tied up at the bow?
Exactly. Seinfeld just completely rejected that. The main characters, Jerry, George, Elaine, Kramer, they basically stay the same. They're pretty petty, often selfish, definitely neurotic.
They don't really evolve episode to episode.
Not at all. And the key insight, I think, is that this wasn't seen as a bug. It was the feature. It was the engine driving the comedy.
How so?
Well, by kind of celebrating human flaws, or at least showing them as permanent things, not problems to be solved, Seinfeld created this world that felt governed by cynicism, kind of dark amusement.
Almost like a stoic comedy, observing life's absurdities without getting too worked up.
You could definitely see it that way, yeah. A sort of detached bemusement at how ridiculous people can be.
Okay, so that's Seinfeld. Then, just 5 years later, 1994, Friends arrives. And if Seinfeld was that cynical mirror, Friends felt like a warm hug.
It really did. It was built on the complete opposite idea. It was all about the hugging and the learning.
Right. The core concept was basically, your friends can be your family.
Exactly. It presented this, pretty idealized picture of being young in New York. 6 good-looking people figuring out life, love, jobs, but always having each other's backs.
The philosophy there seems much more focused on loyalty, support.
Absolutely. And this underlying belief that, life throws curveballs, but you can handle them if you've got people who love you.
It's totally different from Seinfeld's outlook.
Completely. Friends was fundamentally optimistic. Characters face problems, losing jobs, messy breakups, even dealing with a smelly cat.
Ah, right. Smelly cat.
But they always seem to come out okay, maybe a bit wiser and definitely closer. It's less stoic, more Epicurean maybe. Believing friendship is key to a happy life.
It became that ultimate comfort food TV, didn't it?
Okay. Totally. Something aspirational for a lot of viewers.
So it's fascinating. You've got these two massive shows, both set in New York, often even on the same network.
Right next to each other on the schedule sometimes.
Yeah, but built on these completely opposing ideas.
Yeah.
One says life is absurd and people are flawed, maybe irredeemably.
And the other says, no, life's an adventure and friendship makes it hopeful.
And that basic split, that just shapes everything else, doesn't it? Especially the characters. Okay, so if the premise is the skeleton, the characters are definitely the heart. And these two shows, their hearts beat very differently.
Very true.
Let's start with Seinfeld group, often called the narcissistic quartet, which kind of fits.
It does capture something, yeah. They operate like this closed loop of self-absorption, almost perfectly designed for observational humor.
You got Jerry himself, sort of the detached center, analytical, sometimes pretty judgmental.
And famously, no real character arc for him. He's the observer. His friends' problems become his stand-up material.
Then there's George Costanza. Based on Larry David, we know he's just anxiety, insecurity, self-sabotage turned into an art form.
The master of the elaborate lie that always blows up in his face.
Right. He's cheap, dishonest, so petty, but somehow you still kind of feel for him sometimes. Maybe because he always gets caught, the universe always smacks him down.
Yeah, there's that strange sympathy. And what's wild is he never really learns from it. He just keeps making those same kinds of mistakes, driven by his own pettiness.
And Elaine Beniz, she starts out seeming maybe the most normal of the bunch.
Relatively speaking, yeah. But she definitely descends into that same kind of pettiness and anger over time.
It shows that Seinfeld's brand of neurosis wasn't just a guy thing.
Absolutely not. Her dating life is a disaster zone, and then there's that iconic, terrible dance.
That full-body dry heave.
Yeah.
Her own flavor of dysfunction. And rounding it out, the chaos agent, Cosmo Kramer.
The neighbor who just bursts in. He's like pure id, right? Just impulse, no filter.
Yeah.
His weird schemes and that amazing physical comedy, he often just kicks the whole plot into motion.
So what's the bigger picture with this quartet? What do they represent together?
Well, someone called it the equilibrium of irritation. I like that. They drive each other crazy, constantly.
But they never leave each other.
Never. They don't grow. They don't fundamentally change. Their job in the show isn't to evolve. It's to be reliable vehicles for jokes, to react in their flawed, predictable ways when put in absurd situations.
So their unchanging nature isn't bad writing, it's the point.
Exactly. It's Seinfeld's unique comedy machine. It's like a controlled experiment in human weaknesses, never aiming for some big resolution. It lets you recognize those universal flaws, maybe.
Okay, now let's walk across the hall to Friends and their supportive sextet. A very different setup.
Night and day, really. These characters are designed for connection, for relatability, and definitely for evolution. Their relationships are the story.
Take Rachel Green. She probably has the biggest transformation, right? Starts as this spoiled runaway bride.
Totally lost, dependent.
And over 10 seasons, becomes a successful fashion exec, a single mom.
Hello.
Her whole journey really embodies that Friends idea of personal growth.
And her best friend from childhood, Monica Geller, the super competitive, obsessive, kind of the mom of the group.
Her growth seems more about learning to let go a bit, especially with her relationship with Chandler and their fertility struggles later on.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chandler, he's such an interesting case. Starts off as just the sarcastic one, using humor as the shield, right? Because of his backstory.
Right.
And his arc is one of the most satisfying, seeing him move past just jokes, deal with commitment issues, and actually find emotional honesty, especially with Monica.
And you have Joey Tribbiani, Chandler's roommate, the actor. Lovable, super loyal, maybe not the sharpest tool in the shed.
But the heart of the group in many ways.
Yeah.
How you doing? He's just unwavering loyalty. The emotional bedrock.
Phoebe Buffay, the quirky one, eccentric masseuse, musician. Has that surprisingly dark past, but stays optimistic.
Her unique worldview gives her this odd kind of moral clarity sometimes. It's great.
And finally, Ross Geller, Monica's older brother. The intellectual, the paleontologist, often pretty neurotic himself.
His journey seems to be about trying to balance that academic side with, well, emotional intelligence, especially his endless relationship drama with Rachel.
The ultimate will they or won't they.
That was the engine for the whole show, really.
So for this group, the takeaway for us, the viewers, is
it's all about connection. You're meant to connect with them, see yourself or your own friends in them. You root for them, you feel their pain, you cheer when they succeed.
their main job isn't just jokes, it's loving each other.
Pretty much, yeah. And allowing the audience to love them back. It's a totally different goal than Seinfeld, focusing on that emotional bond. And that, naturally, leads to a very different kind of comedy.
Right. So how did these different approaches, these different character types, actually play out in the jokes, the stories week to week?
Good question. Let's look at Seinfeld's humor first. It's often described as a masterclass in comedic craft.
Very intellectual, observational, sometimes pretty dark.
Yeah, and structured, right. Often bookended by Jerry's stand-up, where he'd sort of dissect some social rule or observation.
That the episode would then explore through the character's actions.
Exactly. The laughs come from that gap, how people say they are versus how they actually behave. their pettiness, their weird habits.
But the real magic trick, for many people, is that narrative structure, how the plots weave together.
Oh, absolutely. Seinfeld is famous for that. In a typical episode, each of the four main characters has their own storyline, and they seem totally unrelated at first.
Like Jerry's dating someone with man hands.
George is trying to get fired,
Elaine's dealing with a soup Nazi.
and Kramer's trying to move some giant piece of furniture like an armoire.
They run parallel for most of the episode, and then, bam, in the last few minutes.
They collide, usually in some hilarious, often disastrous way.
That collision is key, isn't it?
It's brilliantly done. Like that episode you mentioned, Kramer's armoire gets stolen by the soup Nazi who Elaine ticked off. Then George somehow gets the armoire, which causes problems with his boss. And Jerry's girlfriend uses her man hands to open a jar. It's all connected.
It's like a tightly wound clockwork mechanism.
It really is. That structure, apparently, it has roots in improv, something called the herald, where different threads come together at the end. It really rewards you for paying attention.
Makes you feel smart for catching all the connections, like solving a puzzle.
Yeah, exactly. A clever riddle.
Okay, shifting gears to Friends. The humor there feels different. Less about intricate plotting, more about emotional comfort.
Definitely. The humor is much more situational, character-driven. It's generally warmer, broader, maybe more immediately accessible.
And the story structure is more typical sitcom. Like
Yeah.
an A story, B story, C story.
Yeah, much more traditional in that sense. A story, Ross and Rachel have a big fight. B story, Monica's obsessed with making jam. C story, Joey gets a new comfy chair.
They might link up sometime, but not usually in that complex Seinfeld way. More straightforward setups and punchlines.
Right. And the humor really comes straight from the characters we know and love. Chandler's sarcastic quips, Joey being endearingly dense, Phoebe's weird songs, Ross's moments of panic, like Pivot.
Pivot, classic.
It relies a lot on those running gags, catchphrases, the shared history the audience has with them. You laugh because it's so Chandler or so Joey.
There's predictability, but it's comforting. Like you know what you're going to get.
Exactly. It's like a comedic security blanket in a way. And that approach, that focus on character and emotion, also allowed them to weave in those really big, long-term story arcs.
Like Ross and Rachel. 10 seasons of will they or won't they.
That was the emotional core. And Monica and Chandler, that slow burn from friends to secret lovers to marriage and adoption, that gave the show a huge emotional weight that Seinfeld just wasn't interested in.
Oh, yeah, it's a really clear divide. Seinfeld feels like it's about the architecture of the joke itself. A puzzle.
Well, Friends is more about the warmth of the people telling the joke. A hug.
Both shows, undeniably huge, left massive marks on TV. But their legacies feel as different as they are.
Completely. Seinfeld's legacy is really one of innovation, right?
Yeah, critics talk about TV before Seinfeld and after Seinfeld. It really changed the game for sitcoms.
How so?
Mainly by making it okay for main characters to be cynical, morally gray, even unlikable sometimes. It really paved the way for all those anti-heroes we saw later in prestige TV.
Like Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is basically Larry David doing Seinfeld again, but even more cringe.
Exactly. Or shows like It's Always Sunny, Arrested Development, they all owe a huge debt to Seinfeld daring to be dark and challenging.
It's funny how being innovative can sometimes bite back, though. You hear about the Seinfeld is unfunny idea now.
Right. The argument being that its style was copied so much it became the norm. So watching it now, the breakthroughs don't feel as fresh.
Yeah, it can seem commonplace or dated if you didn't see it back then. And of course, it got criticized, too. People found the characters too mean, maybe.
And the lack of diversity, especially for a show set in New York, that's a big one people point out now. Though that wasn't unique to Seinfeld back then.
True. Now, friends, its legacy feels more about just sheer universal appeal. It became this massive global thing.
It didn't really revolutionize a sitcom form like Seinfeld, maybe, but it perfected a certain type of sitcom.
Absolutely. It basically created the template for the hangout comedy that was everywhere in the 2000s, like How I Met Your Mother, New Girl.
They all have that Friends DNA. And the cultural impact went way beyond TV, didn't it? The Rachel haircut.
Oh my God, yes. And the whole Central Perk coffee shop trend, it's still one of the most streamed shows like ever. It's the ultimate comfort rewatch for so many people.
Its legacy seems less about changing comedy writing, more about how it connected with people emotionally.
Exactly. Which is interesting because while it had that massive appeal, Friends seems to face even tougher criticism today for stuff that hasn't aged well.
Like what specifically?
Well, the diversity issue, same as Seinfeld. But also recurring jokes about, say, Chandler maybe seeming gay or his transgender parent. Those land very differently now.
And the fat-shaming jokes about Fat Monica.
Right. The storylines get called out a lot. Plus, just the sheer fantasy of it, 6 young people affording those massive apartments in Greenwich Village on sometimes non-existent salaries.
Yeah, that always required some suspension of disbelief.
So it's kind of fascinating. The main criticisms of Seinfeld often come from what it intended to be cynical, maybe unlikable, whereas the criticisms of Friends today are more about its blind spots, its unintentional failures, or jokes that just feel dated or problematic now.
That's a really interesting distinction. So, okay, after digging through all of this, we circle back to that big question you asked us to look into. Seinfeld or Friends?
The million-dollar question.
And maybe the answer is, it just depends on you. What you want from comedy.
I think that's exactly right. It says more about the viewer's preference than about one show being objectively better.
Are you looking for that sharp intellectual challenge? Or are you looking for emotional connection, warmth?
Do you want a show that holds up a mirror, even if it's a cynical one, to how weird real life is? Or do you want an escape into a place that feels safer, more supportive?
People who love Seinfeld, they usually appreciate that sharp wit, the clever plots, the way it doesn't shy away from showing people's flaws, even exaggerated ones.
There may be the cynics, the observers, finding humor in the kind of chaotic absurdity of it all.
Whereas fans often connect with the warmth, the relatability, seeing the characters grow. There may be more the romantics, believing in friendship, finding comfort in those stories of loyalty and love.
Yeah, I think those are fair characterizations of the core audiences, generally speaking.
So ultimately, maybe there's no winner.
Probably not. They were just 2 incredibly successful shows, both at the top of their game, doing 2 radically different things with the sitcom format, and both did it brilliantly.
Seinfeld changed the rules, showed comedy could be smart, maybe a bit cold, complex.
And Friends perfected its own game, showed comedy could be warm, universal, and connect with people emotionally all over the world.
So perhaps the most interesting thought to leave you with is this. Maybe they're not rivals so much as two sides of the same coin. The yin and yang of 90s TV comedy.
That's a nice way to put it. Together, they really showed just how much comedy can do, right? How broad it can be in reflecting life. The petty stuff, the absurd stuff, and yeah, the beautiful stuff too.
So maybe think about it. Which one do you prefer, and what does that maybe say about how you see the world? That's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks so much for joining us.